interviews and TV than you ever will.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. I am so happy to be here with you today with a special guest, Ross Jeffries, here on the Abundant Accountant Podcast today. And I'm so happy to be here, but I want to start out today saying, have you ever had a nightmare client, right? By that, I mean like someone who sucks the life and energy out of you, and then you wish you could get rid of them. I understand. I've worked with a ton of accountants that have shared with me about their nightmare clients, also known as the pitta clients. But one of my students recently said, Michelle, how do I avoid getting these types of clients? Because they were so sick of having to go to work and it feeling like a job. And when things feel like a job, I don't think that's why each of you started your firms to begin with. So in today's episode, Ross and I will be talking about the 3 qualities to avoid in the clients that you bring into your firm and the 3 ways to avoid working with the pitta clients, aka the pain in the ass clients. So that's what we're talking about today. If you have any questions or feedback, feel free to send them to me to my email at hello@thepitchqueen.com. So thank you, Ross, for being here.
It's always a pleasure to be here with you, Michelle, and to speak loudly into the microphone.
Well, I always appreciate him being here. And also, for those of you that don't know, Ross has written a book called Subtle Words That Sell that you can get on Amazon. And it's all the technical ways on how you can learn how to sell without sleaze, how to do it without being pushy. And I know each of you is a really technical type person, so you might love, reading it since now it's not tax season.
They'll love it.
Okay, they'll love listening to or reading it. Is it on Audible yet?
No, I don't think I'm going to put it on Audible. If you're too lazy to pick it up, then you don't deserve to get the contents.
Okay, well, with that being said, today we are going to talk about, how do you know good clients versus bad clients? How do you know which clients to avoid? What are the signs of some bad clients that maybe you don't want to work with that have driven you nuts? Especially as you did tax season this year, maybe you've learned some lessons learned that you don't want to implement going forward. And really how to avoid this all completely going forward in the future. So, Mr. Ross Jeffries,
yes,
what is the number? We're going to
to
talk about 3 different ways, but what is the first way to avoid a pain in the ass client in their accounting firm, for all of the accountants, CPAs, enrolled agents listening?
First, foremost, and always, you have to be willing to step out of your desperation and turn on your discernment. If you're desperate to get a client, nothing I'm going to tell you is going to work. Set aside desperation, turn on discernment, and you have to believe in your own worth and value. You have to come from a frame of screening, not begging. When you're offering your services, you're not begging for change. You're extending an opportunity. So you need to first and foremost get in that mindset. That's key. You have to get the mindset first and foremost. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but I do have a question. So when you say you have to know your worth and your value, can you elaborate a little bit on that? Because I speak a lot on that, but I think a lot of people say, well, I know I'm worth it and I know I should charge this, but how does someone know their worth and value?
It's a perceptual position. It's something that you choose to come from. You can't prove it, but it's simply a choice that you make and you refuse to step off of it. Just like you would refuse to step in traffic in front of a truck. You want to refuse to step in front of the truck of low self-esteem, of low self-evaluation. It is what I call a perceived position. It is a axiomatic starting position from which there can be no other motion than forward.
Got it. So are you going to step in front of a truck or are you not? Right? And if you can think about that, if you know your worth, then that's a good, I think that's a good one actually to start thinking about. Okay, what is the second way to avoid a pitta client, a pain in the ass client that you don't want to work with, but how do you avoid it on the front end? What's the second thing?
All right, I'm going to get a little technical here, and I know you don't like it when I get technical, but we have to listen for language. We have to listen for certain words. We have to listen to their beliefs about the following things, about their sense of possibility, about their sense of capability, and then their sense of identity. So let me unpack that.
Possibility, capability, identity.
Okay.
Got it.
So if they say, well, I don't really know if that's really possible for me at this time, then you know you're dealing with someone who's stuck in their sense of possibility. Exit stage left. If they say, well, you know, other people could do it, but I don't know if I can, that's their sense of capability.
Right.
And then finally, their identity. If they say, I'm just not someone organized enough to do this. I just don't think that this is right for me. I'm just not sufficiently motivated. This is about identity. Now, changing beliefs about capability and possibility are relatively easy, but changing beliefs about identity is virtually impossible. That's why therapy often takes years and still doesn't work, because you're trying to change someone's sense of identity. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. So I have a follow-up question. If you're able to not really change someone's identity, what is a qualifying question that you can ask a prospect sitting in front of you to understand if they have an identity issue?
Do you think that you're the kind of person who could make use of a program to improve the bottom line in your accounting practice? So you ask the question, do you think you're the kind of person who could X,
right,
where X is the outcome that you're promising them?
Love it. That was really good.
Thank you.
Okay, and what is the third way to avoid a pitta client from your perspective?
Right away, before you even very much get out of the gate and exploring whether they're a good fit, they're bringing up the fee. What is your fee? The fee question comes up before you go even 2 sentences into the conversation. And that's just a sign that they're going to be difficult to turn around. They're more interested, in NLP terms, they're more interested in avoiding loss than they are in gaining, right, and moving towards gain. It's something called a meta program.
Okay, let's go into the meta program a little bit more, because every single CPA, accountant, enrolled agent I've ever worked with, they get the price question. So the more we can talk about the price question, the better. And I think that's great. But can you share a little bit more in depth when someone asks what's the price? What should they do?
Well, I would say something like, well, before we discuss what the price is, we have to take a deeper dive and begin to determine what is the benefit for you. Because price standing out in and of itself doesn't give us any of the picture that you can see clearly you want to hire me on. Right. So let's put that aside just for a second and have an exploration discussion, an exploratory discussion about whether we make a good fit. Because before we talk about price, I first have to see if you're a fit for me. Now that turns the frame around. It's no longer about, oh, prove yourself to me. Right. Because when someone asks what's the price, the deeper meaning frame they're putting around it is prove to me that you're worthwhile for me to work with. So we flip the frame and we start questioning and asking and saying, well, let me see if you make a good fit for me to want to work with you. Automatically, they're now put in the the subservient position, if you will.
Subservient. Okay, we're good. That's going a little cuckoo here. This is the Abundant Accountant podcast, okay, not the dating and relationship one. So these are all great pointers, so you don't ever have to deal with a non-qualified client that's going to drive you crazy, suck all the energy out of you, right? But what are some other signs of a bad client, Ross, that you have seen in your history of working with clients over the last 30 years that would apply to someone who owns an accounting firm?
Well, first, this is with any kind of professional in any kind of business. The person is checked out, meaning you'll say something and they're just not paying attention. It's obviously not paying attention. And they'll say, I'm sorry, what did you say? And multiple times you have to explain it over and over and over because they're just not present. They're not in the present. They're usually in their past worrying about a mistake, or in the future worrying about a catastrophe. So number one, they are not present. Number two, they cannot listen. They're doing all the talking.
Mm-hmm.
Number three, it comes through their attitude that because you're working with them and they're paying you, that somehow you're their slave, that they have a derisive or nasty or impatient attitude. Let me tell you something. I've been around now 60 beautiful, amazing years. I love this world and this life, but no amount of time is worth it to deal with someone who's got a bad attitude. I don't care how much money they throw your way. If they're going to make you miserable to work with, if they're not fun to work with, if they don't appreciate what you've got to offer, forget it. Get rid of them. You'll find 10 more people who are happy and will pay you more money.
Love it, love it. Okay, I want to go a little bit different direction because I'd love to discuss now 3 qualities to look out for to qualify your leads that are good ones, right? So you've worked with people for over 30 years, 40 years. 30. Okay,
Not
30.
That old.
Not that old. Okay, got it. But what are like 3 qualities that you found that would be really amazing for an accountant to actually look for, and what's the best way to go about figuring that out when they're on the phone? You know, they're not in person with somebody, but someone just calls and says, hi, what are your prices?
Well, first and foremost, they're inquisitive. They ask really sharp and intelligent questions. This is one of the things I look for.
Sharp, intelligent.
They're inquisitive. Second, if they don't understand something, if you make a point and they don't understand it, they're not going to let you go by without them asking for further clarification. Now, that sort of sounds like inquisitive, and there's an overlap, but it's more a sense that they want to get absolute clarity on what you're talking about. Number 3, and this is really, really a cool thing for number 3, they're not really too intent on bargaining. They know, they can see the clear picture. Once they see the value proposition, they're not going to bargain with you. If anyone tries to bargain with you, hang up the phone or cut off the Skype call or whatever it is. Never bargain.
Thank you. And yes, I agree. Never bargain. So what are 3 questions that each person can add into their qualification form or website before they even get to somebody on the phone to avoid these things that they don't like in a PITA client that they've dealt with for years and they're never going to work with them again? And then what are some questions to ask to get these answers that you're talking about today? Like if they were to write out some really great questions on a pre-qual form or a website inquiry form, what do you think?
Well, I don't know what you've already told them, so I don't know how original.
We can repeat here.
Okay. Well, one of the things I would say is, how committed are you on a scale of 1 to 10 to finding the solution to your challenges in your practice? The second,
this is to their business clients.
To their business clients,
yeah.
But nonetheless, I would say, how committed are you in finding solutions to the challenges you have in your business?
Okay, that's a good one. Next.
Boy, you're pushing me to come really quickly here up with these things. The second thing I would say is, what other solutions or services have you tried? And on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy have you been with them? Number 3, I would say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how strongly do you believe in the possibility that you can achieve your goals with the proper help? So we're looking into their sense of possibility. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and then we have the identity question.
I wouldn't ask about identity. I don't want to bring it up. I do not want to bring up identity.
So the other ones created capability questions and a possibility question.
And also we sort of are sneaking in one about deservingness. Without actually saying it, we're sneaking into their sense of deserving. And by the way, for those of you who are worried about your own deservingness, write down the word deserving and cross out the DE. And what do you get? You get serving. So what you deserve is equal to or greater to the degree in which you serve others. Just you remember that. And I came up with that originally.
That's really good. But I think a lot of the accountants listening today, they serve people every single day. They're in the business of service and never thought that they had to watch out for the bad clients, watch out for which clients to avoid, or that sometimes you take on a client and they disrespect you and, I have to watch out for the bad signs of clients and I have to look out for qualities that I don't want to work with these people.
Can I give you a metaphor? This is a very powerful metaphor. So if we were in the forest and you were starving, and I said, I'll point out every single poisonous plant and berry and leaf, and I really did that, then you could feed yourself well because all you would have to do is avoid all the poison that I pointed out.
True.
Does that make sense? So think of that metaphor of the forest, and you have a guide saying poison, 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 poison. Then by exclusion, what's left is safe.
Got it. So can you relate that to their accounting firm with all the people that are contacting them? Some of us, like me, need explanations because that goes pretty, Ross has a lot of good metaphors, but sometimes I need a deeper explanation. So I'm going to have him explain it a little bit more, even for you too.
Well, I thought we dove into those things, asking the right questions, observing the right things to see what you should avoid. Are they rude? Is their tonality derisive? Are they checked out? Checked out is actually far more common than anything else, being completely checked out of the conversation and being distracted. I insist, when I do consults with people, I politely set conditions. I say, look, here are my expectations. Here's what you can expect from me. In the next 30 minutes, you can expect that I will give you everything I have. I will hold back none of my knowledge. I will answer all of your questions. What I expect from you is that you give me your polite and full attention. Turn off all your other devices. Please put your phone on Do Not Disturb. Please turn off your laptop and any other devices so you can give me your full attention. So you have to set conditions. If they balk at those conditions, then forget it. If they won't meet even the minor conditions for the contours of the conversation, then they're not going to be invested in the content of the conversation. So think of the distinction between contour and content. So you have to set conditions for the contours of the conversation as well as an agenda for the content of the conversation. So our objections will, the bad clients will reveal themselves in both of those stages. They won't follow the contour instructions, and the content instructions is where you'll find out that they're checked out, they're not listening to questions, they're bringing up the price question right away, they're derisive in their tone, they don't ask questions, etc., etc. Does that make sense, that distinction between contour and content? It does.
And one of the other ones that came to mind was that basically you're explaining what they do on an airplane, turn off your cell phones, put it on airplane mode, and really be in focus up, even though when I'm on the plane these days, no one pays attention. Well,
and you can think about it as the airplane protocol. Think about it like that way, the airplane protocol. Give them the airplane protocol.
Oh, I love it. Well, thank you so much, Ross, for being here with us today on another amazing episode of the Abundant Accountant Podcast. And how can people find you?
2 ways. People can grab my book, Subtle Words That Sell, or they can go, if they want to inquire about me being a speaker, go to speakerpaulross.com, because that's my speaker identity. So speakerpaulross.com or grab my book, Subtle Words That Sell.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us today, and it was an honor to have you.
Honor to be here and address your wonderful clientele.